Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. Your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any Watchbox platform. Reach out to me directly for pricing. Email tmosso@thewatchbox.com. Today, we're discussing a special release from Grand Seiko. For 2022, we celebrate 20 years of the Spring Drive GMT, and this is the Grand Seiko Spring Drive GMT SBGE275. Again, in stainless steel, 1,500 pieces, 44 millimeters in diameter, 15.2 millimeters thick, 50.5 millimeters from lug to lug. But if we add the end links of the bracelet, the total distance across the wrist is 52.5 millimeters with a 21 millimeter spacing between the lugs. We'll throw this watch on my wrist, which is 16 centimeters in circumference, and I can tell you it is a large timepiece. I would recommend that you have a wrist my size or larger to wear this well. Any smaller, and especially on the bracelet, you're gonna have some lug overlap at the edges. I'm not there, but I'm close, so I recommend 16 centimeters circumference or better. It does feel very solid, and because the bracelet is substantial and so is the clasp, it's nicely counterweighted. I could imagine wearing this loose without a lot of extraneous secondary movements. Now, taking a look at the bracelet, you can see it's a 3-link design with some polished intermediates. It has an integrated end link for a more handsome junction with the case. We have a little bit of a rolled bevel on the edge of the links, which I really like because the outer faces of the links are polished. The hoods of the links are satinated. And of course, because this is a steel Grand Seiko bracelet, the removable links are fixed by screws. We have a half link in there. You can see we've got a half link on each side for more precise sizing. We have 4 divots drilled inside the clasp, so you can change the anchoring point of the bracelet to alter the fit in minute, subtle ways. Single fold deployant, twin trigger release, rolling back to the case. Here we have Grand Seiko's black polishing technique, which they call Zaratsu polish. It's actually executed on machines that are European in origin, Zalitz machines, but a spinning tin plate is used to create this mirror shine on the edge, and the surface to be milled is held directly against that spinning tin plate, meaning the entirety of this polished case is hand finished, and at a price that simply doesn't afford hand finished watches if you are shopping Swiss or even European. So this technique takes about 3 years to master, time well spent. The case has a little bit of a bevel that starts at the lugs and runs through the mid case. We have satin finished lug hoods. You can see we have an off-centered crown to make this rather large watch ambidextrous, so it won't dig into your wrist. My favorite feature here is that we do have a sapphire cap atop the GMT style bezel. We'll do a quick loom shot here. And as you can see, the entire GMT bezel is well loomed. We also have a 24-hour hand that is loomed, so you can temporarily view 3 time zones on this dial using the bezel, even in the dark. You get a wonderful lustrous impression of richness and refinement when you have a sapphire cap on a bezel. It's something that Blancpain does with the 50 Fathoms. Now, the dial has a chapter ring outboard featuring blue for night and silver for day. It's a 24-hour chapter ring against which you read this 24-hour hand that makes 1 circuit of the dial every 24 hours. We also have local time, and of course the watch has 2 independent time zones. The point of the bezel is that you can set that 24-hour hand to Greenwich Mean Time, then use the GMT offset of your destination time zone to read a 3rd time zone against the bezel, using the hand and the bezel together. Hands, indices, and Grand Seiko logo are micrometrically finished on tiny diamond-tipped milling tools. Grand Seiko dials are up there with Rolex as the best you can buy in the mainstream luxury price class. There are even times when I find that the Grand Seiko dials are more attractive. So these are handcrafted components. The dial is snow-inspired, but it's not the snowflake dial. If you're thinking of something like an SBGE275, this is not that. Now, this is designed to evoke the melting late winter, early spring snow outside of the Shiojiri studio where these Spring Drive Grand Seikos are made. So there's a little bit of a wind-tossed aspect, a little bit of a crystallization, a little bit of a change of phase from ice to water. And all of that is worked into the wrought surface. So you get a very different, somewhat tortured surface compared to the gentle drifts of the snowflake. Okay, turning it all over, There's not a ton to see on the case back, but you can see enough. The unidirectional governing wheel from the spring drive is visible, and that's really the only interesting visual touchstone of the spring drive system. But this watch, which is the 20th anniversary spring drive GMT, has a lot to recommend it mechanically. Screw down crown, it's water resistant to 200 meters. The movement is the Grand Seiko 9R16, which is a hot rodded spring drive. Standard spring drive is plus or minus 15 seconds a month. This is plus or minus 10. You know that because it has that special edition gold medallion in the winding rotor. Also, the reference number of the movement lets you know, if you know Grand Seiko, that this is something special. Automatic winding, 72-hour power reserve. We have a power reserve indicator on the dial. We have a 12-hour hand. We have a 24-hour hand. They're independently settable. There is a hacking seconds function if you want it. All of this pivots on 30 joules. It is designed for the life of the owner and the life of the watch beyond the first owner. Although it is electronic in some regards, it is not a disposable piece of consumer electronics. And I should mention that it is very mechanical, as the driving of all moving components is done by the spring in the barrel. The barrel provides all the motive force. There is no battery, there is no capacitor, there are no stepper motors. You have that unidirectional governing wheel, which turns in one direction only, unwinding the spring's energy, which is why you have this unique gliding nonstop seconds hand that is distinctive of spring drive. And the way it works is the unidirectional governing wheel spins, turned by the mainspring barrel. The governing wheel creates an induced electrical current, which activates a quartz oscillator. The quartz oscillator then works as a timing circuit for the governing wheel, which can be braked using an electromagnetic force to slow it down and keep it on target, timing-wise. So you do have an induced electrical current in here, but all of the motion is spring-induced. And again, there are no motors, there are no batteries. It's mechanical soul with quartz precision, and it really is the best of both worlds. A very distinctive Seiko and Grand Seiko engineering accomplishment. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details.